The resume landed on my desk at 3:15 p.m. Not with a thud, but with a quiet digital ping from my assistant. The subject line just said, "You need to see this." I opened the file. Mark Johnson. My heart didn't stop. It didn't pound. Just went cold. This was my brother. The same brother who laughed 10 years ago as he spun the keys to his new sports car. The car he bought with my entire college fund. He told me, "You're the smart one, Sarah. You'll figure it out." Now he was applying for a senior manager role. My company. He would be reporting directly to me. I leaned back in my leather chair, the one he said was a pipe dream, and looked out over the city. My city. The one I built while he was busy coasting. I buzzed my assistant back. "Caroline, please schedule the final interview for tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'll be handling it personally." The silence on the other end was loud, but I didn't care. He figured I'd figure it out. And I did. Now it was his turn. Before I tell you exactly what happened in that interview, and trust me, you will not believe what he said when he finally saw me, let me ask you something. Have you ever had to choose between justice and the family that betrayed you? This is the part of the story most people get wrong. They want the easy answer. They want grace. But the truth is, some lines can't be uncrossed. Hit subscribe if you believe that our actions must have consequences. Only people like Mark, who think a smile can erase their past, would ask for a handout from the very person they destroyed. Don't be like Mark. Subscribe if you believe in accountability. And if you think he deserves to know exactly who he's dealing with, comment, "The interview is waiting" below. Stick around because the payback I have planned is better than revenge. It's justice. When I was 8, Christmas morning always started with the sound of my brother Mark tearing through his presents. He was 2 years older, and he always got the big gift. One year it was the brand new top-of-the-line gaming console he'd screamed for. He'd get a B and a C on his report card, and my parents would just laugh. "He's just so full of life," they'd say, clapping him on the back and handing him the giant box wrapped in shiny red paper. He'd rip it open, plug it in, and the rest of us would just disappear into the sound of digital explosions. I always waited for mine. It was always smaller, tucked behind the tree, forgotten. That same year I got a beige savings bond. "This is for your future, Sarah," my dad said, tapping the envelope. "You're the planner. You understand." I had perfect straight A's. I had won the state spelling bee. I didn't understand. I just nodded and smiled the way I was supposed to. I looked at Mark, already yelling at the TV screen, and I looked at my boring piece of paper. Even then I knew. He was the now. I was the later. And later felt a million miles away. This was the pattern, and it never ever changed. When Mark was 14, he borrowed our dad's car without asking and dented the fender on a mailbox. He wasn't allowed to drive for a month. What was his real punishment? My parents bought him a brand new 21-speed mountain bike so he could still get around and be responsible. They said it would teach him a lesson. He just saw it as a reward. He and his friends laughed as they raced down the street, popping wheelies on the sidewalk, nearly running me over as I walked home from the library. That exact same week, I won first place in the district science fair. I had built a working robotic arm out of scrap metal and old computer parts. I carried the big blue ribbon and the small trophy home, my arms aching. I set it on the kitchen table right where they'd see it. When my mom came home, she just put her mail right on top of it. "Oh, that's nice, honey," she said, not even looking. "Did you see Mark's new bike? Make sure you remind him to lock it up." The trophy sat there for 3 days before I quietly moved it to my room. By 15, I stopped trying to win their attention. Focused on winning my freedom. My room wasn't a teenager's room. It was an office. I had a big 3-inch white binder labeled, "College Fund." Inside I had spreadsheets. I had graphs tracking my part-time job at the diner. I had every single dollar I'd saved from birthdays and holidays since I was 10. It was my obsession. That binder wasn't just paper. It was my escape plan. It was the boat I was building, piece by piece, to get me off the island. Mark would just barge in, call me a nerd, and try to steal my calculator. "Why are you working so hard, Sarah?" my mom would ask, frowning at my spreadsheets. "Just enjoy being a kid. You're making Mark feel bad." That was the real problem. My planning, my saving, my focus. It was an inconvenience. It made their golden boy look lazy. So, instead of encouraging me, they tried to slow me down. "We'll help you with college when the time comes," my dad would say, waving his hand. "Don't worry so much." But I saw how they helped Mark. Helping Mark meant cleaning up his messes. I knew deep down I couldn't count on them for anything. My dad always said, "Mark has the charm, but Sarah has the brains." He said it like it was a compliment, but it wasn't. It was a life sentence. It meant Mark's job was to smile, and my job was to fix things. My job was to be responsible enough for both of us. He was the heart of the family, the one who made everyone laugh. I was the structure. I was the beams in the wall that no one ever saw. But I didn't care. I just kept adding to the binder. By my senior year, I had saved $24,117. Enough for the first 2 years. That binder was my life. It was everything. It was the late nights at the diner, the missed parties, the old clothes, the constant grinding work. It was my future. I kept the bank book and the account info tucked inside it, hidden in a lockbox under my bed. The only other person who knew the combination was my mom, just in case of an emergency. I trusted her. That was my first mistake. My real mistake. Because the emergency came. It just wasn't the one I had planned for. And the person who used that key wasn't my mom. It was Mark. And he took every single cent. My high school graduation party was exactly what I expected. It was loud, the food was cheap. And even though it was my party, my brother Mark was the star of the show. He was in the center of the backyard, telling some loud story to his friends, and my parents were laughing like he was the funniest person on earth. I didn't care. I had been waiting for this moment all day. I slipped away from the noise and went back into my quiet bedroom. My graduation cap was sitting on my dresser, but I was already looking past it. Tonight was the night. The deadline to pay the $1,000 housing deposit for my first semester dorm room. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop, my hands shaking just a little bit with excitement. This was it. The first real step. I typed in the bank's website, my heart doing a happy little drum roll. Blick. Put in my password. Blick. The page started to load. I was picturing the number in my head. $24,117. But that's not what I saw. Page loaded. I saw checking account balance. $14.50. Blink. $14.50. That couldn't be right. Had to be a mistake. A website glitch. My finger slammed the refresh button. $14.50. I refreshed it again. $14.50. My blood didn't just go cold. Felt like it evaporated. It was gone. All of it. Every dime I had saved since I was 10 years old. Every single late-night shift at the diner. Every birthday check I never cashed. It was all just gone. I clicked on recent activity. My fingers feeling like heavy stones. My mind was spinning. Was I hacked? Did someone steal my identity? Then I saw it. It was just one line. A single giant withdrawal from 3 days ago. Counter withdrawal. $24,100. Counter withdrawal. That meant someone didn't use an ATM. Someone had to walk into the bank. Someone had to have my bank book. But that was impossible. My bank book was safe. It was in my lockbox, hidden under my bed, right where it always was. I threw my laptop onto my pillow and dove for the floor. I ripped the metal box out from under the bed. The lock was still on. I fumbled with the key, my hands shaking so hard I almost dropped it. Blick. I threw the lid open. My big white college fund binder was still inside. But it felt wrong. Felt too light. I opened the cover. The spreadsheets were there. The college pamphlets were there. But the plastic sleeve in the very back was empty. The sleeve that held my bank book and my spare ID card. It was gone. And then I remembered. The combination. Mum. Just in case of an emergency. My stomach twisted. But why? Why would she? She wouldn't. But someone did. I didn't even feel my feet hit the stairs. I just ran. I flew through the kitchen right past my dad, who was carrying more chips to the backyard. "What's the rush, Sarah?" he called. I didn't answer. I burst out the back door, the party music hitting me like a wall. "Mark!" he yelled. "Mark!" But he wasn't by the food. His friends were gone. Then I heard it. A deep, coughing vroom from the front driveway. It was a sound our family's old rusty minivan could never make. It was the sound of a powerful engine. I walked through the side gate, my whole body feeling like it was moving through water. And that's when I saw it. It was a sports car. A shiny, cherry-red convertible. It wasn't new, but it screamed money. And sitting in the driver's seat, wearing my dad's old sunglasses like he was a movie star, was Mark. His friends were piled in, laughing and cheering. He revved the engine again, the sound bouncing off the houses. He looked so happy. He looked so proud. He hadn't looked that proud since he won a hot dog eating contest last summer. I just stood there on the grass, my feet frozen. I was looking at my entire future. My 4 years of college. My dorm room. My meal plan. My textbooks. It was all right there, parked in my driveway, covered in cheap red paint. And my brother was sitting in it. He still hadn't seen me. He was too busy being the golden boy, the center of attention, just like always. But what he didn't know was that his whole world was about to change. "Mark." My voice was quiet, but it cut right through the music and the engine noise. He finally saw me. He killed the engine and hopped out, a stupid, proud grin on his face. "What's up, Sarah? Pretty sick, right? Certified pre-owned. Total babe magnet." I just looked at him. My vision was starting to get fuzzy at the edges. "Where did you get the money, Mark?" His smile flickered. "Just for a second. What are you talking about? I got a killer deal. A total steal." I took one more step right up to the shiny red door. "I'm asking you one more time. Where are you? Money." His friends got quiet. They were all watching us now. Mark's face turned red, and he tried to laugh it off. "Relax. God, why are you always so dramatic? I was gonna tell you. I borrowed it." I just stared at him. "You borrowed it? You borrowed $24,000, Mark. My college deposit is due tonight." He crossed his arms, his whole face twisting into that angry defensive look he always got. And then he said the words that burned themselves into my brain forever. "I needed it. My car was junk. You're the smart one, Sarah. You'll figure it out. Just get a loan or something." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even look at the car again. I just turned and walked back into the house. My dad was standing at the door now, his face looking worried. "What's all the yelling?" he asked. I walked right past him. "Mark stole my college money," I said, my voice completely dead. My dad sighed and rubbed his face. "Sarah, don't say stole. It's such an ugly word. He made a mistake." My mom came up behind him, wringing her hands. "He was just so upset about his old car, honey. Please don't ruin your own party. Don't ruin the family over this. We can't return the car now." "Stop." I looked at my mother, the one who knew the lockbox combination. I looked at my father, who was already protecting him. And I looked back out the window at Mark, who was already showing his friends the car's speakers. They were all laughing again. My party. My money. My future. And I was the one ruining it. Something inside me didn't just break. Turn to steel. I turned around, went back to my room, and I locked the door. I didn't cry. I just opened my laptop. The college deposit page was still blinking. I had 2 hours until midnight. I was completely alone. And I had a new plan. I sat there, staring at the locked door. My clock said 10:15 p.m. Outside, I could hear the party music start up again. I could hear laughing. They had already moved on. My dad was probably telling Mark not to worry, that it would all blow over. My mom was probably cutting another piece of my graduation cake. They had chosen him. They chose the boy with the shiny red car over the daughter with the broken future. I looked back at my laptop screen. Balance. $14.50. I should have been crying. I should have been screaming and throwing things at the wall. But I wasn't. I just felt cold. The cold feeling started in my stomach and spread out, making my hands steady. It was a sharp, quiet, clear feeling. Felt like a light switch flicked on in my brain. The part of me that wanted to be loved, the part that wanted them to be proud, the part that wanted to belong, it just turned off. I looked at the poster of my dream university on the wall. I saw the ivy-covered buildings and the smiling students. I had wanted that more than anything. I reached over to my laptop and very slowly I clicked the X on the university's housing portal. The page disappeared. The dream was gone. But what do you do when your dream dies? You don't die with it. I opened a new browser tab. My fingers didn't even shake. I typed Oakwood Community College. Fall admissions. The deadline was in 2 weeks. The tuition was cheap. I could pay for it by the class. I wouldn't need a loan. I wouldn't need a co-signer. I wouldn't need them. I clicked Start New Application. I didn't pull out my big white binder. That binder was a book of fairy tales, based on a lie. Instead, I opened a blank spreadsheet. In the very first box I typed, Plan A, because this was it now. This was the only plan. But even community college costs money, and I had $14. I needed a job. No, my part-time diner job wasn't going to be enough. I needed 2 jobs. I opened another tab. Indeed.com. I clicked on Find Jobs and typed in night shift. I didn't care what it was. Stocking shelves. Cleaning offices. Working the graveyard shift at a gas station. I clicked Apply. I uploaded the resume I had used for my college applications. I clicked Apply again, and again, and again. My resume flew out into the darkness, a dozen little paper boats, begging for any shore that would take them. Around 11:30 p.m., the party music finally stopped. The house got quiet. Then I heard footsteps. Soft, nervous knock. Sarah. Honey. It was my mom. Please open the door. Your father and I. We just want to talk. I didn't move. I just kept clicking. Apply. Apply. Her voice got shaky. Sarah, please. We're sorry. Mark is sorry too. He doesn't think sometimes. He feels terrible. Sorry. Sorry wasn't $24,000. Sorry wasn't my future. I stopped typing. The silence must have been loud. Sarah, she whispered again, her hand on the knob. We'll figure something out. We're still a family. That word, family, hit me. I stood up. I walked to the door. I could feel her on the other side, waiting. I put my hand on the cold metal doorknob. She was right. We were a family. But families didn't eat their own. Families didn't protect the wolf and sacrifice the lamb. I thought about Mark's stupid, proud grin. I thought about my dad's sigh. I thought about my mom giving Mark the key. Don't worry, Mom, I said, and my voice sounded strange. It was flat and low like a stranger's. I've already figured it out. And I turned the deadbolt. Blick. This time the sound was final. I heard her make a little noise like a gasp. Sarah, no. Don't do this. I heard my dad's voice in the background. Just leave her, Judy. She's being dramatic. She'll be fine by morning. I went back to my desk. I put on my headphones and turned on my music loud. So loud I couldn't hear them. I couldn't hear anything but my new plan. At 1 a.m. my email pinged. Congratulations. Your application to Oakwood Community College has been received. At 2:15 a.m. another email pinged. Interview request. 24/7 Megamart Night Stalker. 7 a.m. My interview was in less than 5 hours. I didn't sleep. I didn't even try. I just watched the black sky turn to a bruised gray-purple. The posters of my dream school looked silly now, like pictures of a planet I could never visit. I took them down one by one. I ripped them into neat little squares and dropped them in the trash. Then I opened my closet and pulled out a single backpack, packed my laptop, one change of clothes, my toothbrush, and my old empty lockbox. I left the big white binder on the floor. I left everything else. All the trophies, all the report cards, all the lies. At 6:15 a.m. I stood up. The house was dead quiet. They were all asleep. My mom, my dad, and the golden boy. They were all sleeping peacefully, their little drama over, their problem, me, locked away in her room. They had no idea I had an interview. They had no idea I had a plan. They thought I was just being dramatic. They thought I would be fine by morning. Open my door. The hallway was dark. I walked down the stairs, my sneakers making no sound on the carpet. I was a ghost in my own house. Got to the front door. Through the little glass window I could see it. The red car. It was sitting in the driveway, shining in the pale morning light. It looked like a giant red tombstone. It was a monument to my $24,000. A monument to my stolen future. A monument to the moment my family showed me exactly what I was worth to them. Nothing. I looked at that car, and I made a promise to myself. I wasn't going to get revenge. That was too small. I was just going to win. I was going to build a life so big, they wouldn't even be allowed to look at it. I turned the doorknob, opened the door, and walked out into the cold morning air, never once looking back. The 7 a.m. sun was just hitting the hot pavement when I walked into the megamart. The air smelled like stale popcorn and floor wax. The store was huge and empty. The manager, a tired-looking man named Mr. Henderson, looked at my resume. It was still full of my high school debate club awards. He looked at my honors sash, which I was still wearing under my thin jacket. You're a high school graduate. With honors. And you want to stock cereal boxes from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I just looked him in the eye, my backpack still on my shoulder. Yes, sir. I'm a very hard worker. He must have seen that cold, clear light in my eyes. He just nodded. You start tonight. My first year was a blur. I didn't just walk out of my parents' house. I vanished. I found a tiny, windowless room to rent above a 24-hour laundromat. The smell of bleach and hot fabric was always in the air. My life became a simple, painful rhythm. I'd go to my community college classes from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., trying to learn business management while my brain felt like it was full of cotton. Then I'd sleep from 4 p.m. until 9 p.m., eat cold cereal straight from the box, and walk to the megamart. From 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., I was a ghost, pushing a heavy cart, lifting boxes, and organizing soup cans. My hands, which used to just hold pens, were now covered in cuts and calluses. In that whole first year, my phone rang only 5 times. It was my mom. I never picked up. She left voicemails. Sarah, please. This is silly. Just come home. We're worried. Then, Sarah, Mark. He feels bad. He wants to talk. I listened to them, not with anger, but like I was listening to a weather report from a different country. I just press delete. I ate Thanksgiving dinner alone in the Megamart break room, a vending machine turkey sandwich. I was 19 years old, invisible and completely, totally on my own. But I was saving money again. This time no one knew where I kept it. And I was already planning my next move. 2 years. That's how long I lived in that gray, fuzzy world. I graduated from Oakwood Community College with a perfect 4.0 GPA. I hadn't just survived. I had saved $10,000. It wasn't $24,000, but it felt like more because it was mine. I applied to the best state university in the city, the big one downtown. I got a full academic scholarship. The acceptance letter came and I didn't even smile. I just nodded. It wasn't a victory. It was just the next step in the plan. I quit the Megamart, moved into a tiny dorm room, and for the first time I was a real college student. But I wasn't like the other kids. The other students went to football games. They joined clubs. They went to parties and talked about their summer trips. I went to the library. I took 18 credits every semester and I got 2 new jobs. One in the library, shelving dusty books, and one as a student coder for the computer science department. I didn't even know how to code, but I lied in the interview. Then I stayed up for 72 hours straight, teaching myself programming languages from the internet. I was a machine. My professors loved me, but the other students stayed away. They called me the ghost because I was always there but never really there. In my senior year, a huge, fancy tech company called Innovate Solutions came to campus. They were looking for interns. All the top students, the kids with rich parents and perfect smiles, were lined up, shaking hands. I just walked up to the lead recruiter, a sharp woman named Ms. Alvarez. I didn't smile. I just handed her my resume. She looked at my 4.0 GPA, my 2 jobs, and the lines of code I'd written for the science department. "You've done all this by yourself?" she asked, her eyebrows raised. "Yes," I said. "Got the internship. It was unpaid. I didn't care. I just needed my foot in the door. I wasn't an intern for long. While the other interns were getting coffee and trying to be friends with everyone, I was fixing code that their senior developers couldn't crack. I didn't talk. I just worked. Ms. Alvarez, the recruiter, became my boss. After 1 month, she pulled me aside. "Who are you, Sarah?" she asked, not unkindly. "I'm the person who solves problems," I said. When I graduated, they didn't just offer me a job, they offered me a career. I started as a junior analyst. Within 2 years, I was a project manager. By year 5, I was the youngest director in the entire company. I was 27. I was successful. But I was bored. I was 27. I had a nice apartment. I had a good car, one I paid for in cash. I even sent a Christmas card not to my family but to my old neighbor. She called me, excited to hear from me. She told me all the news. My dad was fine. My mom was fine. And Mark. Oh, Mark had dropped out of college after 2 semesters. He'd wrecked the red sports car. He was figuring things out, which meant he was living in my old bedroom, working part-time at a car wash. I listened, said, "That's nice," and hung up. Felt nothing. But my old neighbor said one last thing. "Your mother. She asks about you, Sarah. She's not doing so well." That night I couldn't sleep. I was a director. I had everything I ever wanted. But I was still building their dream. I was still the ghost. I was still following a plan I made when I was 18. That cold, clear feeling was still inside me, and it was telling me to keep going. I walked into Ms. Alvarez's office the next morning and gave my 2 weeks' notice. She was shocked. "But you're my successor. I'm making you vice president." I shook my head. "I'm not built to be a successor," I told her. "I'm built to be a founder." I cashed out my 401k, drained my savings, and rented a tiny 1-room office. My new company was just me, an old laptop, and one single idea. I called it Apex Solutions. The first year I almost went broke. I lived on instant noodles. I worked 20 hours a day. I wrote the code. I made the calls. Closed the deals. And then, finally, it worked. We landed a massive client. Then another. By the end of year 3, Apex Solutions was the fastest growing tech startup in the city. We were the talk of the town. We were moving into a huge new office on the 30th floor. And we were about to get a visitor I never ever could have planned for. We moved into the new office on a Tuesday. The 30th floor. The walls were all glass, overlooking the entire city. From my window, if I squinted, I could see the tiny, flat roof of the megamart where I used to stock soup cans. My new desk wasn't cheap particle board. It was solid oak. My team, the 50 people I had hired myself, were the best. We were smart, fast, and hungry. We had just landed the biggest contract in our company's history, beating out giants like Innovate Solutions. And because of that, someone else was coming to visit. A reporter from TechPulse, the biggest tech magazine in the world. He wanted to do a story, not just on Apex Solutions. He wanted to do a story on me. His name was Ben, and he had kind eyes but a very sharp pen. He sat across from me in my glass-walled office. "So, Sarah Johnson," he said, clicking his pen. "You're the ghost of the tech world. 10 years. From nothing to all of this. It's an impossible story. Nobody does that." He leaned in, his recorder on the table. "Where did you come from? What drives you?" I just smiled. "I came from a place where I learned you can only count on yourself." What was driving me? Was it the need to succeed? Or was it the ghost of a red sports car and a bank balance of $14.50? I knew he was digging for a story, but he had no idea what story he was about to find. The camera crew arrived next. They were filming me for the magazine's website. They followed me as I led the big morning meeting with my managers. I wasn't loud. I wasn't mean. I was just clear. Phase 1 needs to be complete by Friday. Phase 2 starts Monday. No exceptions. My team just nodded and got to work. Ben, the reporter, watched me. "Your team. They're not scared of you, but they respect you. You're very controlled," he said. I just looked at him. When your whole life falls apart, you learn to control the pieces. You don't get a choice. He wrote that down. "And what happens if you lose control?" he asked. I looked right at the camera. "I don't." Ben was good at his job. He'd done his homework. "I looked you up," he said, flipping through his notes. "You started at Oakwood Community College. Most founders from your background, they come from Ivy League schools. They come from family money. Why did you start there, at a community college?" The little red light on the camera was on my face. Could feel its heat. I could have told him. I could have told him about the $24,000. About the lie. About the betrayal. About my family. But I just gave him that cold, clear smile. I needed a plan that was 100% mine. No co-signers. He narrowed his eyes. "No family help," he pushed. "No," I said. "No family." We toured the office. He noticed the layout. "Everyone has the same desk," he said, surprised. "Even you. Everyone has the same chair. Everyone has a window." He was right. There were no closed-off corner offices. Just my glass meeting room. "I don't believe in corners," I said, walking him through the main floor. "I believe in open space. I believe in accountability." Ben stopped walking. "What does accountability mean to you, Sarah?" I thought about Mark. I thought about my parents. It means the work you do is the only thing that defines you. Not your name. Not your charm. Just the results. I knew he didn't fully understand. But I also knew my family would. We were finishing up. The cameras were packing. Ben thanked me for my time. "It's a great story, Sarah. The girl who built herself from scratch." But then he paused, his notepad still open. "Just one last thing. It's probably nothing." My stomach tightened. "What is it?" He looked confused, like he was just checking a box. "When I was researching your name, Sarah Johnson, another name kept popping up in the public records. Mark Johnson. Same hometown. Any relation?" My heart didn't stop. It didn't pound. Just went perfectly, totally still. He was standing in my office, in my building, asking me about him. I looked right at the camera, which was now pointed at the floor. Then I looked at Ben. My cold, clear smile locked into place. "Everyone has family, Ben." He waited, expecting more. I just kept smiling, saying nothing. He finally sighed, realizing he wasn't going to get anything else from me. "Right. Well, thanks again." He and the crew left. I stood alone in my office, watching the elevator doors close. He thought he was just asking a simple question. He had no idea he had just handed me the real story. The magazine was coming out. And I knew exactly who was going to read it. The magazine hit the internet 1 week later. The cover was just my face in black and white. The title, "The Ghost: How Sarah Johnson Built a $100 million Empire from Nothing." It was everywhere. My phone exploded. Investors, old professors, even Ms. Alvarez, my old boss, called to congratulate me. "You did it, Sarah," she said, her voice full of pride. "You really did it." Thanked her. But I was staring at my other phone. My old cheap burner phone that I kept in a locked desk drawer. The one that only one family had the number to. It was dark. It was silent. For 2 whole days, nothing. I knew they'd seen it. How could they not? My old neighbor, Mary, probably drove a copy right over to their house. I imagined my mom looking at my face on the cover. I imagined my dad reading the part where I said I started with nothing. I imagined Mark, now 30 years old and probably still living in my old bedroom, seeing my success. Did they feel proud? Did they feel guilty? Did they even care? I told myself it didn't matter. I had my company. I had my new life. But there was a tiny, stupid part of me that was still waiting. Waiting for the "I'm sorry." But the phone stayed silent. The call I was waiting for never came. But something else did. It was Friday afternoon, 1 week after the article. My assistant Caroline buzzed my intercom. Her voice sounded strange. "Sarah, you have an unusual email. I think you need to see it." I told her to forward it. It wasn't from an investor. It wasn't from a client. It was from our public careers at apex.com inbox. The subject line read, "Job application, senior manager." The applicant's name was Mark Johnson. He had attached a resume. He hadn't just seen the article. He was using it. He was trying to use me. Again. He had no idea who I had become. But he was about to find out. I stared at the name on my screen. Mark Johnson. It wasn't a trick. It wasn't a mistake. It was real. Caroline, my assistant, was waiting on the intercom line, probably wondering if I'd had a heart attack. I hadn't. I was just breathing. Very slowly. "Thank you, Caroline. I'll handle this," I said, and my voice was perfectly even. I clicked the email open. There it was. Cover letter. Resume. He was applying for the senior manager of logistics. A job that required trusting someone with millions of dollars of our clients' products. The irony was so thick, I almost choked on it. I clicked open the resume file. It was 2 full pages long, which was strange, because he had almost no real experience. He had used a huge, fancy font to fill the space. He listed, graduated from Northwood High School, the same school as me, but he left off the year. Then, attended State University. Tended. Not graduated. I knew why. He dropped out after he spent all my money and wrecked that stupid red car. He didn't just steal my future. He had burned his own to the ground. The golden boy had lost his shine. This piece of paper wasn't a resume. It was a list of all his failures. Under experience, he had written manager at City Car Washington. I knew for a fact that was a lie. My old neighbor Mary had told me he just held the sign on the corner and waved at cars. Then, independent project manager. That was a fancy way of saying unemployed. Under skills, he had the nerve to write expert negotiator and people person. I remembered him negotiating the keys to his new car from my parents. I remembered him negotiating my entire college fund right out of my bank account. He hadn't changed at all. He was still just a charming snake, trying to talk his way into a life he didn't earn. But the cover letter was what truly stopped my heart. It wasn't a normal cover letter. It was a letter. "Dear Apex Solutions," it started. "I was so inspired by the recent TechPulse article on your founder. She sounds like a brilliant and focused person." He was pretending. He was pretending he didn't know me. He was trying to get an extra look based on my name, while acting like he had no idea who I was. Did he really, truly think I was that stupid? Or was this some kind of sick, twisted game? He was hiding right there in plain sight. Then I read the last line and everything clicked into place. I feel a special connection to this company's story of starting from scratch and building something great. And then it hit me. He wasn't pretending he didn't know me. This was so much worse. He knew exactly who I was. He saw my face on that magazine cover. He saw my $100 million company. And he thought, great, my sister is rich. She'll give me a job. He wasn't applying in spite of what he did. He was applying because of who I was. He saw my success not as something I built. He saw it as a new giant bank account he could borrow from. My first instinct was simple. Delete. I could hit the delete button and he would vanish. He would just be another failed application in our system. He would go back to his life and I would go on with mine. Caroline would never mention it. No one in HR would ever know. It would be easy. It would be clean. Just one single click and 10 years of pain would be gone. I could protect my company. Could protect myself. My finger hovered over the mouse. This was the moment. I could make him disappear. Just like he made my money disappear all those years ago. But where was the justice in that? He wouldn't learn anything. He would just go on thinking I was the cold-hearted sister who wouldn't even give him a chance. He'd go home and tell Mom and Dad. I tried. I applied. She ignored me. And I would be the bad guy again. Well, deleting was an escape. That was the old Sarah. The Sarah who ran away at 6 a.m. with a backpack. The new Sarah. She didn't run from problems. She solved them. That cold, clear feeling washed over me again. He wanted an interview. He could have one. He wanted to be a senior manager. Fine. He'd have to prove it. I buzzed my assistant. Caroline. My voice was so calm it almost scared me. Yes, Sarah, she answered, her voice small and hesitant. Please schedule Mr. Johnson for an interview. There was a long, dead silence on the line. I knew what she was thinking. She'd read the TechPulse article. She'd seen the last name. She was connecting the dots. Are you sure? She finally whispered. Are you sure you want to see him? I looked out the window at the city I had built with my own 2 hands. Oh yes, I said. I'm sure. But Caroline, there are 2 special conditions for this interview. What are they? She asked. First, I said, schedule it for tomorrow at 10 a.m. In the main boardroom. Caroline paused. The fishbowl. Sarah, that's the big glass one in the center of the office. We only use that for board members. Exactly, I said. Everyone on the floor will be able to see in. And second, send him the standard HR pre-interview packet. But I want you to add one more form. The financial responsibility and background check authorization. Make it mandatory for this position. Caroline was quiet for a moment. Then she just said, Yes, ma'am. I'll send it right now. I leaned back in my chair. The trap was set. Now I just had to wait. Would he sign the form? Would he authorize me, in writing, to look into his past? Or would he panic and run? All night I didn't sleep. I just sat in my office watching the city lights. He thought he was coming here for a job. He thought he was coming for a handout from his rich sister. He had no idea he was walking into a final exam. He stole my past, and now he was asking me to give him a future. Tomorrow at 10 a.m., we were finally going to settle the account. And this time I was the one holding the pen. The big clock on my wall read 9:55 a.m. The 30th floor, my 30th floor, was buzzing. But it was a quiet, nervous hum. My team knew. I hadn't said a word, but they were smart. They knew a Mark Johnson was coming in. They knew he was interviewing in the fishbowl, the giant glass-walled boardroom in the very center of the office, the one we saved for investors and board members. They were all pretending to work. But I knew they were all watching. I sat alone at the head of the 20-foot solid oak table. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't angry. I was just ready. That cold, clear feeling was back, sharp as a diamond. 10 years of grinding. 10 years of silence. It all came down to this moment. My desk phone buzzed. It was Caroline. Her voice was barely a whisper. He's here, Sarah. He's in the lobby. I took a slow breath. Send him back, Caroline. And please hold all my calls. I watched on my security monitor as she met him by the elevators. He was wearing a suit. It was cheap, it was shiny, and it was 2 sizes too tight in the shoulders. But he was wearing it like it was a king's robe. He was smiling. That same easy, golden smile he used to get out of trouble. The one that made him the golden boy and made me the shadow. He was finally here. Caroline led him from the lobby. The moment they stepped onto the main floor, the whole office went silent. The sound of typing just stopped. Mark didn't notice. He was too busy looking around, his eyes wide, his jaw slack. He was looking at the 30-foot ceilings, the view of the entire city, the rows of busy employees. I could see him puffing up his chest. He thought they were silent because of him. He thought they were impressed by him. He gave a little nod to one of my female engineers as he passed. He thought this was his welcome parade. He had no idea he was the one being led to the slaughter. Caroline walked him to the massive glass door of the boardroom. He was still grinning, still looking around, still soaking it all in. He thought he had arrived. He thought his rich sister had built all of this just for him to finally show up. Caroline opened the heavy door. "Mr. Johnson, your 10 o'clock is waiting." Mark swaggered in. His cheap cologne hitting me a second before his voice did. Thank you, thank you." "What a place," he boomed, his voice echoing in the huge, quiet room. He was looking at the view, at the expensive chairs. He still hadn't looked at the head of the table. He hadn't looked at me. "Please take a seat, Mr. Johnson," I said. My voice wasn't loud. I didn't have to yell, but it cut through the room like a razor. He froze. His head snapped toward me. His smile didn't just fade. Shattered. It was like watching a bucket of ice water get thrown in his face. All the blood drained out of his head. He stared at me. His mouth opened but no sound came out. Sarah," he finally stammered. The confident golden boy was gone. In his place was a terrified kid. His eyes darting to the glass walls, realizing everyone was watching. "Hello, Mark," I said. "It's been a long time." He just stood there, his hand on the back of a chair like he needed it to stand up. "Sarah. I didn't know. I mean, I saw the article, but I didn't." I held up one hand. Just a small, quiet motion. He stopped talking instantly. Down. He didn't sit. He collapsed into the chair. It was the heaviest, most expensive chair he had ever touched, and he looked tiny in it. He looked like a child who had been called to the principal's office. He was trapped. The glass walls of the fishbowl were pressing in on him. He couldn't run. He couldn't hide. And he knew it. I let the silence hang in the air for a full minute. I just watched him. I watched him try to get that smile back. I watched him fail. Finally, I pushed his sad 2-page resume across the polished table. "I've reviewed your application, Mr. Johnson." He winced when I said his last name. "It's ambitious." He tried to laugh, a high, squeaky noise. "Sarah. Come on. It's me. This is amazing. I'm so proud of you. I was thinking, with me here I could really help you. Family, right?" He was trying to find the old dynamic, the old power. But the old Sarah was gone. "This is a professional interview, Mark. Not a family reunion," I said, my voice flat and cold. "And my company, as you read in TechPulse, is built on one single principle: accountability." I tapped his resume with my pen. "It says here you were a manager at a car wash. It says you're an independent project manager. These are very creative titles. Let's start there. Walk me through, in detail, the last 10 years of your professional life. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you haven't held a real job. Ever." His face went from white to a dark, angry red. He was cornered. And he knew everyone was watching him sweat. He started to stammer. "I had some bad luck. The car. It had problems. I've been helping Mom and Dad. It's been tough." He was playing the victim. It was his last, desperate move. "I see," I said. "Bad luck." I opened my leather folder and pulled out a single, clean sheet of paper. "Well, that's what our background checks are for. This is our standard financial responsibility and background check authorization form. Gives us permission to do a deep dive. Credit report, bank records, past employment verification. Everything. I slid it across the table. It was in the pre-interview packet Caroline sent you. You did fill it out, didn't you? His eyes got huge. He stared at the paper like it was a snake. He knew he hadn't. He thought he could just smile and charm his way past it. He thought family meant rules didn't apply. Oh, I said, my voice full of fake surprise. You didn't bring it. How strange. You see, Mark, we can't possibly continue this interview for a senior manager of logistics without a full financial background check. It's policy. I picked up my heavy, expensive pen and held it out to him. But don't worry. I have a blank copy right here. You can fill it out. Right now. Just sign at the bottom. Giving me permission to look at everything. Mark stared at the pen. He didn't look at me. He just stared at my pen like it was a loaded gun pointed right at his head. He was sweating now, big heavy drops. I could see a dark stain forming on the collar of his too-tight shirt. Outside the glass walls, my entire team was watching. They weren't even pretending to work anymore. They were just watching. Mark knew it. He licked his lips. Sarah, look. A background check, he whispered, trying to smile. But his face just twitched. Isn't that a little formal? For family. He was begging, his eyes darting to the glass walls, hoping no one could hear him. Family, said. My voice was quiet, but it filled the huge, silent room. Family is exactly why we need this, Mark. I tapped the paper again, right on the signature line. This job, the one you applied for, manages millions of dollars in client products. Before I can trust you with their money, I need to know something. I leaned forward just an inch. Can I even trust you with my own? His face went from white to a pale, sick-looking green. He knew this wasn't an interview. He finally understood. This was a reckoning, and I was just getting started. He shoved the form away, his hand shaking. I'm not signing that. His voice was low and angry. The desperate, begging look was gone. The cornered animal was here. This is a joke. You did all this just to embarrass me. You think you're so much better than us now, don't you? Sitting in your glass tower, looking down on everyone. He actually stood up, his chair scraping loudly on the polished floor. You were always like this, Sarah. Always cold. Always the little planner. Thinking you were smarter than everyone. He was putting on a show for the audience outside. But he forgot. They didn't work for him. They worked for me. I didn't stand up. I didn't even raise my voice. I just sat there and let him finish yelling. When he was done, panting a little, I asked a simple question. Am I cold, Mark? Or did I just get tired of being the only one paying the bills? He froze. What? What is that supposed to mean? I looked down at his sad, empty resume. It says here you attended State University for 2 semesters. That was 10 years ago. Right after I graduated high school. I looked up, my eyes locking onto his. Tell me about that car you bought that summer, Mark. The shiny red one. I don't know what you're talking about, he stammered. His eyes darting to the door. That was a long time ago. I had a job. He nodded. It was 10 years ago. It was a 2010 red convertible. You bought it on a Tuesday afternoon. And you paid for it in cash with $24,100. Money that you took from my college fund. From my bank account. The one you stole the bank book for from the lockbox under my bed. The boardroom was so quiet I could hear the air conditioning click on. Mark just stared at me, his mouth open. He had no words. He had no defense. The truth was finally sitting on the table between us. Heavier than the oak. You're right, I continued, my voice still quiet, still cold. I am cold. You made me cold. That $14.50 you left in my account. That was the best investment you ever made in me. It taught me to build all of this. I waved my hand at the office, at the city skyline. And it taught me to never trust a people person who can't fill out a background check. I stood up slowly. You didn't come here for a job, Mark. You came here for another handout. You saw my face on a magazine and thought you'd found your new bank account. I walked to the heavy glass door and pulled it open. The interview is over. He just stood there, shaking. He looked from me to the open door, to the dozens of faces staring at him through the glass. The golden boy was gone. He was just a thief. He grabbed his cheap suit jacket from the back of the chair and walked past me. He wouldn't look at me. He just stared at the floor, his face burning a dark, ugly red. He walked the long walk, all the way across the silent office floor, past every single employee. My employees. The only sound was the click-click-click of his cheap shoes on the hardwood floor. Then the elevator doors opened, he stepped inside, and he was gone. I went back to my private office and sat down. I didn't close the door. My team slowly started typing again, but the energy was different. They understood. 10 minutes later, my private line rang. The one that wasn't on the company website. The one only a tiny handful of people had. I knew who it was before I even picked it up. I pressed the speakerphone button. Sarah! My mother's voice shrieked, so loud it was crackling and distorted. What did you do? Your brother just came home. He's a mess. He's destroyed. She wasn't asking. She was accusing. He told me what you did, she screamed, and I could hear her sobbing in the background. You brought him into your big, fancy office just to humiliate him. You embarrassed him in front of all those people. What is wrong with you, Sarah? He needed that job. He was trying. For the first time in his life he was trying to fix things, and you crushed him. She was hysterical. All this over a little bit of money from 10 years ago. Money. Is that all you care about? I just sat there listening to her. She hadn't changed. After all this time I was still the one who was wrong. I couldn't find my voice. All the strength I had in the boardroom, all that cold, clear power, it just evaporated. It was just my mom screaming at me, and suddenly I was 8 years old again, holding a stupid savings bond, being told I was the problem. Mom, I started, but she cut me off. Don't you dare. You finally have everything, and you still had to step on him to get it. You are just cruel. My office door creaked open. I looked up. It was Ms. Alvarez, my old mentor, the CEO of my company. She had heard the whole thing. She looked at me, then at the phone, and her face was like stone. She calmly reached over and took the phone off speaker. Ms. Alvarez took the phone from my desk. My mother was still screaming on the other end. Her voice a tiny, tinny buzz of rage. Sarah, are you listening to me? Sarah. Maria didn't flinch. She just held the phone to her ear, listened for one more second, and her face went flat and cold. This is Sarah's chief operating officer, she said, her voice like ice. She is no longer available. Do not call this number again. And then she just hung up. She hung up on my mother. She blocked the number. Then she looked at me, my hands shaking in my lap. She didn't ask if I was okay. She just said, let's go to the break room. You've earned the good coffee. We sat on the stools, the smell of fresh espresso in the air. Felt hollow. That little 8-year-old girl was back, the one who just wanted to make her mom happy. She thinks I'm cruel, I whispered, staring into my cup. Maria shook her head, her face kind but firm. She's not mad because you're cruel, Sarah. She's terrified because you're powerful. She can't control you anymore. And her golden boy. You just showed her he's made of tin. She put her hand on my arm. What you did in that room wasn't cruelty. It was a business decision. And it was the right one. You protected this company. You protected yourself. When I walked back out to my desk, the office was quiet, but it was a different kind of quiet. It wasn't the nervous, what's going to happen, quiet from before. It was respect. My entire team had seen the fishbowl interview. They had heard my mother's screams through my door. They saw Mark's walk of shame. As I passed, my lead engineer, a quiet man named David, looked up from his keyboard and just gave me a slow, solid nod. No one said a word. They didn't have to. They weren't just my employees. They were my team. They were the family I had built. The one that had my back. The next 2 days were the quietest I've had in 10 years. My personal phone, the one my mother was now blocked from, didn't ring. No angry texts from my dad. No desperate fake apology emails from Mark. It was over. The big, loud 10-year-old monster had finally been faced. And it was gone. But the quiet it left behind was strange. It was empty. The cold, clear feeling that had driven me for a decade. The anger that got me out of bed and made me work 20-hour days. It was gone too. And I was left with just me. Was this what winning felt like? It didn't feel like a party. Just felt still. Then, a week later, an email came. It was from my father. I hadn't gotten an email from him ever. The subject line just said, Sarah. My heart did a weird little jump. My dad never emailed. He barely knew how to use a computer. Clicked it open. The email was 2 sentences long. Your mother is very upset. I don't know what to do. He wrecked the new car too. The one he got last year. He wrecked another car. I stared at that line. After all this, nothing had changed. He was still him. And they were still cleaning up his messes. I looked at my dad's email. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't accusing. He just sounded tired. Plus, for the first time, I didn't see him as the man who protected Mark. I saw him as a weak man, trapped in a cycle he didn't know how to stop. And I realized if I did nothing, this would never end. They would just keep enabling him and he would keep failing forever. The anger was gone and now I just felt sad. Picked up my phone. I didn't text my mom. I texted my dad. I'm having dinner at my apartment. Sunday at 6. You, Mom, and Mark. Just you 3. No one else. This is the only invitation. Sunday came. I didn't cook a fancy meal. I didn't set a power table. I just ordered a couple of pizzas. I put them on my simple kitchen table, the one that sat 4 people. No glass walls. No employees watching. This wasn't a boardroom. This was just a room. When the doorbell rang, my stomach twisted. Opened it. There they were. My dad looked old. My mom's eyes were red and puffy, but she wasn't angry anymore. She just looked empty. And Mark, he looked awful. He looked thin, and his eyes wouldn't meet mine. He just stared at the floor. They came in and sat down. It was the most awkward silence I have ever felt. My dad picked up a slice of pizza. My mom just stared at her hands. Mark didn't move. Finally, my dad spoke. This is a nice place, Sarah. Thanks, Dad, I said. We just ate. The only sound was chewing. The big, loud, screaming fight was over. The war was done. And this is what was left. Just 3 broken people and me. I wasn't their daughter. I wasn't their sister. I was just the person who owned the apartment they were sitting in. Finally, Mark looked up. His eyes were red. I'm sorry, Sarah, he whispered. It was so quiet I almost missed it. He wasn't saying it because he meant it. He was saying it because he was broken, and he had no other words left. My mom started to cry, silent tears just rolling down her face. We didn't know how to help you both, she whispered. He was just so loud. And you were always so quiet. It was just easier. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't an excuse. It was just the truth. They were weak. And I was strong. And that was the whole story. He nodded. I didn't say, I forgive you. I didn't say, it's okay. I just said, I know. The silence between us wasn't a war anymore. It was just space. It was the space between my new life and their old one. After they left, I stood at my window, looking at the city lights. The phone call with my mom and the interview with Mark. It was finished. But as I looked at the city, a new, strange feeling settled in. I had won. I had gotten the apology. The monster was gone. So, what was I supposed to do now? That question, what now, hung in my apartment for a week. The anger was gone. For 10 years that anger was my fuel. It was my coffee in the morning and my alarm clock at night. It got me through the cold night shifts at the Megamart. Made me study harder. It made me build this company when everyone said I would fail. Now the fuel tank was empty. I had won the war, but I had no idea what to do in peacetime. I was a CEO, rich and successful, but for the first time in my life, felt lost. I was scared that without the anger, the cold, clear feeling, I wouldn't know how to be me anymore. I went to work the next day. I walked out onto the main floor not as a boss but just as Sarah. David, my engineer, gave me his usual quiet nod. My marketing team was laughing, drawing a crazy new idea on a whiteboard. They weren't just employees. They were people. People who trusted me. People who had families. People whose paychecks I signed. I suddenly realized my company wasn't built on anger. That's just what started it. It was built on accountability. It was built on good work. My purpose wasn't to fight Mark anymore. My purpose was to protect this. This was my real family. The one I had built myself. My dad texted me a few days later. "Are you coming over for Christmas?" I looked at the little message bubble for a long time. I thought about the beige savings bonds. I thought about the quiet, sad dinners. I thought about my old room, the one Mark was probably still living in. I typed back a simple message. "No, but I love you." It was the first time I had said that in 10 years. And I meant it. But I also meant the no. I couldn't go back to that house. I couldn't be planner Sarah in the corner again. I could love them from a distance. But I could never let them close enough to hurt me again. I opened my laptop. I was still the planner. It was still who I was deep down. I opened a new blank spreadsheet. But this one wasn't for my escape. This one was for my future. But it wasn't just my future. I thought about that 18-year-old girl with $14.50 in her account, sitting on the floor of an empty room, her whole life in pieces. I thought about all the other girls and boys out there right now just like me. The ones who had the grades but not the money. The ones who had no one to co-sign their loan. The ones who were invisible. I typed a new title at the top of the spreadsheet. The $24,100 fund. I transferred that exact amount from my personal account. Then I added a zero. And then another zero. And another. I was starting a scholarship. It was for kids from my old community college. Kids who came from nothing. Kids who had bad luck. My stolen money. It wasn't stolen anymore. I was planting it. I was turning the worst day of my life into the best day for someone else. That was the real payback. That was the real justice. Not the look on Mark's face. For 10 long, grinding years I thought I wanted justice. I thought I wanted him to pay. I wanted my family to apologize. But the truth is, that sad pizza dinner at my apartment, it didn't fix me. His empty sorry didn't make the pain go away. My mom's "it was just easier" didn't heal the scar. The thing that saved me wasn't the confrontation in the boardroom. It was the work. It was the night shifts. It was the coding. It was the building. I saved myself. They didn't have the power to save me. And they didn't have the power to break me either. I looked out my window. I wasn't the ghost anymore. I wasn't just the planner. I was the founder. And my life was finally my own. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need their apology. I was free. That shiny red car is just a pile of rust in a junkyard somewhere. But that $14.50, that was the seed money for my entire empire. Mark thought he was ending my life. He was just teaching me how to fight. And I will never ever stop fighting for the life I deserve. And for the people who deserve one too. This story was for you. It was for every single person who has ever been overlooked. For every person who was told to be quiet, while the loud, golden boy got the prize. If you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've ever had your future stolen from you, I want you to know, you are not alone. And your story is not over. It's just beginning. You just have to be brave enough to start the next chapter, even if you have to walk out that front door with nothing but a backpack and a plan. If you believe that we are defined by our actions, not our excuses, then hit that subscribe button right now. Don't side with the marks of the world, the people who think a smile and a sorry can erase the damage they did. Don't be the parent who finds it easier to look away from the truth. Be the person who holds them accountable. Subscribe if you believe that the truth is always more important than keeping a fake, unhappy peace. Your subscription tells the world that you stand for something real. And I want to hear from you. This isn't just my story. It's our story. In the comments below, I want you to write, "I am building," if you are on your own journey. If you are stocking your own shelves, if you are studying for your own tests, if you are fighting for the life you deserve. Let's show the world what we're made of. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and I'll see you in the next story. Because trust me, there is always another wrong to make right.